let's move on to the next block. We've got some interesting updates on Ukraine, and then our friends across the pond have a new prime minister. Let's start with our politics first. Let's throw this up there on the screen. President Biden is seeking an additional $13.7 billion for Ukraine as U.S. aid to the war-torn country is, quote, running out. As a reminder, we've already appropriated $44 billion. It is part of a $47 billion emergency spending request. Now, of the $13 billion, it's actually important that we dive into it because, again, media is not doing this. Now, most of this money is for new weapons and ammunition, equipment, intelligence support, and direct budgetary support in order to shore up the Ukrainian government's finances so that it can continue to ask for foreign direct investment. Zelensky, by the way, will be ringing the New York Stock Exchange bell this morning remotely in a campaign for foreign direct investment into the country. We are literally shoring up and backstopping their debt and their economy so that they are able to not just use our money, but also to buy weapons with that. So it's like a secondary form of financing. Now, the important thing about this here is that also much of this money also is needed in order to buy back multiple stocks of ammunition and weapons that we need to replace the stocks that we have sent to Ukraine. I've laid out here specifically how it takes, in some cases, 2 to 3 years. Stinger missiles, for example, are literally not in production. So they take 2 or 3 years in order to make them. So the stocks that we have sent over there, we're now at 1/4 stock. Same whenever it comes to some of the howitzers and other rounds of ammunition, literally not available right now and won't be back in stock for 2 to 3 years as a result of production. But I think it's just always important to put it in context of all of the European powers, the extraordinary extent to which the United States has been giving aid to Ukraine. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. So when what we see here is by total bilateral aid. Now, this one shows it by GDP, which I also do think is important. What it shows you here is that the United States, while yes, has spent less % of its GDP in order to support Ukraine, and to be fair, the Baltic states actually are stepping up. What you see in the foreign aid to Ukraine by country is that we are outspending these people to an extent that is genuinely difficult to describe in multiples. So just to give everybody an example, now on military assistance alone, the United States has spent $25 billion so far in terms of what we're giving to Ukraine. No other country comes even close to 1/5 of that, save for the UK. In military assistance. And now we are adding an additional $8 billion. Again, more than double what every other country in all of Europe has appropriated there. So when you look at the sheer military number and you just try to understand the extent to which we are the ones shipping the vast majority of the weapons to this area, you then see the extent to which we should, frankly, then be able to tell the Ukrainians, like, hey, do this, don't do that, because you literally won't exist without us. We should have far more of a diplomatic role in either trying to bring this thing to the close or not. But second, to describe this as some sort of allied mission is ludicrous whenever the UK and Poland are the only 2 countries in the entire NATO alliance to even pony up more than $1 billion in military aid. And we are outspending them in our brand new appropriation by 8 to 1 in most of these cases.
And it is not in doubt at all that Biden will get the money that he's
Of course he'll get this money. Yeah.
Jackson, Mississippi doesn't have water to drink, but we can, $13.7 billion more to Ukraine, and there's not even there's no doubt it will go through. This is package number, 15, 16, something like that, really. And the part that bothers me the most isn't even the supporting them or any of that. The issue for me is what is the plan? Is this just what we're gonna do forever? Just like a 10 billion there, 20 billion there, we were, the last big appropriation, the idea was okay, this is the thing. This is going to give them the tools they need to be able to have this counteroffensive and be able to push Russia out and really show what they're made of. Well, that has all fallen completely by the wayside, and now we seem to just be in this sort of endless, all right, we're just gonna every month or so send them another $15 billion and not really talk about it or not really talk about where we're headed with any of this. And I will never get over the fact that there was a potential peace plan that was basically negotiated and on the table when former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson travels to Kyiv and says, no, we do not want this. And the we there is definitely the UK and the US, because we have been a solid alliance in our approach to this war the entire time. Now you are nowhere close to having any sort of negotiation, any sort of diplomacy that could potentially break through this. Now you have Zelensky saying very clearly they want to not just go back to where they were before this invasion, but they want to retake all of Ukraine, including Crimea. So we have gone so far backwards, and the only strategy here seems to be to continue to send tens of billions of dollars in aid every couple months to Ukraine in perpetuity.
Yeah, and look, how is the summer offensive going? Here's what we got so far. So it's mixed news, apparently. The Ukrainian offensive has at least prompted the Kherson occupiers to pause the poll on joining Ukraine. You'll recall that the Russian state media said there was a plan in Kherson in order to have a referendum, and that fake referendum would then be used in order to justify like an official annexation and some sort of, quote, democratic legitimacy as to their occupation. For now, that has been paused. Now, from what I can see, there have been at least 2 towns. Now, this is according to the Ukrainians that say that they have had counteroffensive success. The Russians are saying that that isn't true. How do we know the truth? No, that's the answer. We're not on the ground. However, there have not been any quote unquote decisive victory. As to the actual battle itself, there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda really coming out. From what we can generally see, the fact the Russians had to pause it, that's probably not good. There was an interesting report out this morning. The Russians are apparently buying a lot of weapons and ammunition from North Korea, which is probably not a good thing whenever you have to stoop to the lowest level on the planet in order to try and go buy weapons. Though, to be fair to the North Koreans, they do have a large stockpile, and they definitely do need the money. So from what we can see, Putin, the Russian military, and them are trying to keep the war effort going, but also not disrupt Russian life even more.
Yeah.
They're not doing conscription. There's a piece in the Times, the lead story today, which is basically, in Moscow, the war seems like it's worlds away. It's kind of like us in Iraq. We were like vaguely aware that it was happening. Most people here supported it. And to the extent that people turned on it, it took years, a lot of suffering, thousands of people dead. And that's in a democratic society with quote unquote free media. Not that the media was all that great at that time. But anyway, in Moscow, general support. People are like, yeah, fine, whatever. The Russian people as well. And Putin is trying very much in order to keep these two worlds apart from each other as long as possible. Fascinating little bit of a dynamic. But beyond that, it does show you, though, that, if this is what we got for $40 billion, and we'll see, I hope they have a decisive victory. We'll see. I highly doubt it. But if they are unable to do that, and then we have to keep shipping 13 billion more, 12 billion more, and again and again and again, and then the rest of the European powers are just sitting on their hands doing nothing, how much longer are we going to just simply be writing them a blank check? Where then, if this passes, this will be more than $50 billion appropriated to the Ukrainian military effort in total. Then again, we have to answer the question of what is our end goal? At what point do we say no more? At what point do we tell Zelensky, we're like, sorry, you can't have any more. We'll be giving you $50 billion. Yeah, you gotta figure this thing out on your own. Like the American people have done so much. The Western society, my whole monologue is on this. The economic damage alone on this to the West is well over $1 trillion at this point. The UK today is talking about a £170 billion bailout just for its small businesses on energy bills.
Yeah.
So it's like this cascades all the way down.
And this is what we're about to talk about. This is with the new Margaret Thatcher acolyte, free market, whatever. Yeah. And even with this new prime minister, they're still thinking we might have to do a bailout.
Yes, there's no question.
Stimulus, because that's how dire the situation is.
Right.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.